if you don't repot them, the roots will just keep growing and growing and growing, and like most pot plants, they will become pot bound, and that's when the tree will start to die, basically. It takes many years, but gradually it'll get a little bit weaker and weaker. The roots don't have enough space to work properly. So we repot, or rather than the term repotting, it would actually be better to say root pruning.
Right, yeah.
Sounds a bit daunting, doesn't it?
Well, no, but I suppose it's obvious you've done a real good job on the top of the tree. I suppose the bottom of the tree has to be attended to as well.
The two are as important as each other. A good way to test if it needs repotting is just get a hold of him and give him a little wiggle. If you can see that he's moving quite freely in there, just be very gentle with it. You can see that the soil isn't actually moving around it. Well, that tells me that the roots aren't occupying all the soil. If I was to get hold of him and give him a wiggle and he didn't move, then I'd know that there's a lot of root out in that soil there. So that gives me an indication that it needs repotting. If you've had a bonsai for a few years, you will get to know, or you will know, when you last repotted it. If it's new to you and you're not sure, then give it a little wiggle, and I can see from here that he's just moving around there. Sometimes I might give it a little wiggle and it might move that far out into the soil. But if it's firm and you can't wiggle it and the whole pot moves, then the chances are that it's going to be really well rooted. So that gives an indication of when it's going to need repotting. So in that case, what we would need to do is to gently ease the tree out of the pot. Then you're going to have this root ball, which is the same shape as the pot that it was in. There are going to be roots growing all the way around the outside of that and all the way underneath, like this big mat of roots. That's when it needs root pruning. And that is the bit that people think, oh no, got to root prune. All right, and then they stick it back in the pot and then forget about it. So that's the point. You need to do something about it. If you just take it out of a small pot and you're going to put it into a bigger pot, those roots are still going to stay in that shape. You're still going to have the original shape of that pot, the original pot that it was in. So we are raking out the roots. The roots are all hanging out the soil, you're pruning them back, and you put it into fresh soil. And that allows the new roots to grow out into the fresh soil and then take the shape of the new pot. The other interesting thing is that we don't always pot up. For instance, how do you know when you need a bigger pot? Sometimes you might need a smaller pot. One of the things to think about when you are repotting is, A, does the tree look too big for the pot? Does it look top heavy? Does it look like it's going to fall over? Does the tree look lost in the pot? Is it far too small? Quite a good way of telling is that when you look at a bonsai, you should look at the whole picture. If you just glance over and the first thing you see is this tree and you don't see the pot is wrong for that tree. So what you should see is the bonsai, which is the pot and the tree together, and the two should be in harmony with each other. In later programs I will be showing you more detail about the repotting, the root structures and things like that. For now, let's keep it simple. You have a bonsai, it needs repotting. You've established that it's got a lot of roots around the root ball. Basically what you will need to do is remove it from its pot, and with something like a chopstick, just gently tease out all the roots around the outside of the root ball. And you are reducing the soil, the root ball size, about, let's say, a third of its original size. So you're gently teasing out the roots around the outside. The roots will be hanging out. You will then, once you've done that all the way around, and a little bit underneath as well, because you'll get a big mat of root underneath. Tease them out very gently. Sharp pair of scissors, just go round and trim them all off, so you give it a good haircut. And so long as you're only removing about a third, you won't do the tree any harm. But don't do any more than that. Some trees you can remove a bit more, but until you're confident, until you're sure about what you're doing, just do a little bit. You want to leave enough room for another year's growing. That's all you're doing basically. Once you've done that, you trim back the roots, then you can put some fresh soil in the bottom of the pot and put the tree back in and work some fresh soil in around the roots. That will keep the tree nice and healthy and allow it space to keep growing for the next year, 2 years, depending on how well the growing season is and things like that.